Greetings viewers, welcome to our second video on necromancy entitled The Gravewalkers. I'm Baron Araignee.
And I'm Baroness Araignee.
First off, we would like to thank all our viewers and subscribers for their great feedback and interest.
We know this time around you have expected to see us in a cemetery, however due to certain complications we could not film there. Thereby, here we are again in our living room.
In this video, we will be discussing some of the basic concerning cemetery work, as well as the basic characteristics of the dead.
Also, as an extra, we will answer a few of your questions that you have asked us. Now, first things first, paying homage before entering a cemetery. We know that most of you, before entering a cemetery, do not pay homage. Perhaps you say a mental note to the dead therein, perhaps not. However, we highly recommend that from this point on forward, you have no more excuses. As for future references, you must pay homage before entering the cemetery. Doing this has many good things attached to it. First thing is the dead and the guardians of the cemetery will remember you. They will know you for your good actions towards them, for your respect towards them, and for your honor. Also, the psychopomps or guardians of that particular cemetery will ensure your safety during your stay there, so that no malicious spirits or haints or anything of the sorts can attach to you during your stay. Also, the psychopomps or guardians of that particular cemetery will ensure the cooperation of the spirits involved, so that you don't have to struggle to get them to cooperate at all. Now, the offerings that you can give the guardians of that particular cemetery are many in variation. However, we will only be discussing 3 here. The first one is a small amount of alcohol. This is whiskey, or you can use rum. Secondly, and our personal favorite, 3 silver coins. It can be of any value whatsoever, as long as it is silver. And the third, of course, tobacco. Now, how you give this offering is simple. Upon entering the cemetery, by the gate, you dig a small little hole. Thereby, you place your coins, your alcohol, or your tobacco, whatever else you might feel needed for the situation. And upon placing it in the hole, you state either aloud or mentally to the guardian of the cemetery or the psychopomp of the cemetery your purpose for being there, be it to harvest certain ingredients found in a cemetery, be it to find a new spirit worker, or just for walking around in the cemetery. Pay homage and tell them why you are there. Also, ask for their protection and their guidance during your stay there.
Guardians of the cemetery. Throughout the ages in human history, they have been known by many names, such as Ereshkigal, Nergal, Thanatos, Orcus, Hades, Baron Samedi, Baron Cemetery, Monsieur Mort, Lady Death, Santa Muerte, and many others. I will now show you a couple of examples of effigies representing these great beings. Here's one, which you can clearly see. Here's another. And of course, ever popular black dolls. Animal bones can also be used as representation of the dead, like this beautiful cat skull I have here. It has served us very well throughout the years. If you wish to work with any one of these guardians of the cemetery or of the dead, the method you can follow to work successfully with them is as follows. You go to the cemetery, look for the oldest male or female grave. This will represent either the male that guards the cemetery or the female. If there's both of them, then you're actually very lucky in this, for it shows great balance and great power. What you do is, you take your ritual implements, go to this place, draw the appropriate markings, which we will be discussing later on in another video, and then give your offerings or your sacrifices there, and then you start your working.
Now, simple do's and don'ts while in a cemetery. To be honest, this is just a very, very short list of such things, as there are many, many things that you shouldn't do and what you should do while in a cemetery. However, this will just be the simple things to get you on your way. Do not disrespect the dead or the psychopomp there in any way, shape or form. Doing this will have disastrous consequences for you. Do not do that. Also, do not walk over graves unless you absolutely have no other choice. This means walk either at the foot end, on the sides, or past the headstone of graves. However, never over a grave at all. Some dead find this highly disrespectful to them, and they may retaliate in return. If you absolutely have no other choice and you have to, then, of course, beg your pardon, because the dead are always there and always listening. Also, do not at all vandalize anything you might find in a graveyard, be it the headstones or anything of the such. Never vandalize it, as again, the dead will find this offensive. We guarantee this. Also, if you wish to harvest something from either graves or the cemetery in general, be it grave sand, grave moss, what have you, if it comes from the graveyard, you must give an offering in repayment. You shouldn't just take. Thereby, the offerings that I have described earlier on, the coins, the alcohol, the tobacco, or anything else that you might find appropriate. If you take something, you give it back. For example, if you take grave sand from a particular grave, place a few coins there and say what it is for. Never take anything without giving something back. Also, when working with the dead in a cemetery, preferably never ask them about their demise. An example, how they died. Some of the dead have come to terms with it and they have no problem discussing this. Others, however, or for others, it's a little bit of a delicate subject matter. If they want to tell you, they will, if they have learned to trust you. Otherwise, rather do not bring up the subject matter there. Always respect everything that you might find there. Do not go out looking for any sorts of concerns with the dead. Do not go out of your way to get on their nerves at all. If you follow these guidelines, you will be alright. Remember, these are only a few pointers.
The characteristics of the dead. Well, it's simple. As they were when they were living, so they shall be when they are dead. Unless they find some sort of a divine teacher to help them ascend, or if they have ascended enough spiritually in life, then they will be in a different place and not that easy to contact. For example, if you wish to contact it, or if you contact a spirit that was an alcoholic in life, so this spirit will be in death. It will be unmanageable and very difficult to work with. Same with a drug addict. If you, for example, have to do darker workings, revenge, dominance, you will go to a criminal's grave, for example, or murderer, or soldier that can perform the task you set out for it. However, any spirit worker has to gain your trust, and vice versa. It won't be such an easy task just to call forth the spirit and expect it to work for you. It has to prove itself worthy. Remember, in the occult, no matter what you work with, you deem as a tool first until you can test its edge, and then you can start relying on it or trusting it. Remember, any hard work you put into a cult, the greater result will be. You cannot simply jump into it and expect great results. It simply doesn't work like that. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of patience and a lot of dedication in order to achieve a result.
Now it's time to answer your questions. As these questions come in, we'll incorporate them into our videos. So if you have a question for us, don't forget to ask. All of these following questions have been asked by real people. These viewers have chosen aliases to protect their identities.
You know who you are.
Yes. Now, Uncle Timmy from 3rd Street asked us 3 questions. The first one being, what's the most powerful dead you've ever encountered, and what did it do?
A couple of years back, we worked with a female spirit, a human dead. We can call her Annie. Her history was that she died single. She never married, so she was basically a single her whole life, and she had a lot of hardship. And later on, other practitioners conjured her from a grave site, and they abused her. In other words, they didn't pay her for what she did for them in the magical arts, in necromancy. And we worked with her, and we had astonishing results. She delivered what we set out for her to do in less than a week, and this was a darker act that she performed for us, and that was a wonderful experience to both of us.
Other spirits who we have said that exact same task at, they didn't even complete it within months of us giving them that said task. However, she completed it within less than a week. Sorry.
And these were supposed to be demonic entities which couldn't perform the most basics of black magic.
Also, mind you, this is definitely not the most powerful thing that we have ever worked with concerning the dead or concerning non-human entities. However, this is one of many. We will not be able to mention all of them, as, quite honest, this video is not long enough. However, since this is one of our more recent additions, we decided it fit to give her honor by speaking of her like this. So there you have it. Now, how often do your dead show up unannounced with requests? Well, again, to be dreadfully honest, the spirits of the dead, they tend to shy away from us a little bit. Reasons for this are various. One of the most common ones being that they feel slightly intimidated by us and our presence for some reason. Thereby, sometimes we have to milk it out of them what they want. But apart from that, we keep a good relationship between our working spirits and ourselves. So if they want something, or if they need something or whatever, we would know about it very soon, as they would let us know very soon. Apart from that, obviously you get the occasional spirit roaming about, passing through. However, even they keep their distance from our general space, from our house. They would linger in the garden perhaps, or something like that. However, they very rarely enter our home without our permission. It is most likely due to the guardians that we have set up, but in general they tend to not approach us very easily.
Yeah, if you set up powerful enough guardians, what happens is they usually devour the essence of the spirit if they try to intrude on your lair or your home or wherever you reside, or your temple. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why the spirits will not come anywhere near where we live.
Now, what are your views on the afterlife, and does it change for magicians too? Well, this is actually a very long and complex answer. But
to put it basically, only the dead will know truly what lies beyond the land of the dead per se. No one living will ever know that. We personally believe, through our experience, is that the land of the dead will be as each person believed it to be while living. If there's a person out there, practitioner, medium or psychic, who claims that they know exactly what lies beyond death, then they're blatantly lying and they're charlatans. Because there's no one living that knows that as a fact. You literally have to sever the ties of your body completely in order to know what lies beyond that. Not even if you're astral projecting. You cannot see clearly and lucidly what lies beyond.
And also near-death experiences and such does not count with this. You must be completely and utterly deceased, gone, for you to experience all of it. While astraling, you might experience parts thereof, but definitely not all of it, as you are still living. Remember this. And apart from that, our personal beliefs, that is a little bit too long to explain here, but you get the idea. Now, Mr. Corso from the Order of Starry Wisdom asked us, have you ever tried summoning a dead wizard?
Except for that we don't have any desire to do so, no. The reasons are many why it's not actually a great idea to do that. For example, if the sorcerer has ascended to a place, the average necromancer will not be able to evoke or conjure the spirit, because that place cannot easily be breached or reached by those in the flesh, or even by those that's at lower levels than them in the land of the dead. And it's a very risky procedure to take. It's a very risky undertaking, because that spirit could have been malicious, could have ulterior motives, and then you evoke it and it manifests itself in your space, and it can easily lash onto you or an object, and then it can feed from you or those you love, and at the end of the day destroy you completely.
The standard spirit, what we tend to refer to the garden variety spirits, they in general do not always know the exact full capabilities they can operate in. However, mostly spirits of dead practitioners know this very well, so that just adds to their danger level. And apart from that, even if they are ascended, and even if you get it right to reach them properly, most of them will not be very happy at all to come back, and they will lash out at you for doing just that. We ourselves know a couple of deceased practitioners whom we know that if we have to try to contact them, they are ascended. If we contact them and they come to us, they will definitely not be happy with us at all. So thereby we can, but we don't exactly have interest in it. Now, what about vampires? Have you ever met any? No, blood-sucking people who practice the vampire lifestyle don't count.
Well, my wife and I have actually come across a group of vampiric spirits known as the Akaru. This name originated from Sumeria. It's also mentioned in the Necronomicon. These vampiric spirits is nothing like the Anne Rice or the Twilight variants of bullshit spirits. No, there's nothing romantic about them. They are extremely vicious, extremely tenacious, like a pit bull on PCP, basically. When those things latch onto you, it will destroy you and everybody you love around you, even your pets. Usually when they attack, you can see signs of them through your pets, because they'll kill your pets first and then they'll move on to bigger prey. Other vampires of the flesh, such as psychic vampires, aren't vampires that go forth and drink the blood of the living. No. These vampires are feeding off the life essence or the spiritual essence or the shade of the living. Very seldom they will kill their victims. But other than that, that's it. The Akaru, that's a true vampiric species. They are purely in the spirit. They've never been in the flesh. It's simply their nature to do what they do.
And both of us have worked with these spirits before, these beings before. They are magnificent in what they do, and when you ever encounter these Akaru, you better hope that you are not on the receiving end of them, because that wouldn't be a nice place to be. And for those of you that has been wondering, no, the Necronomicon is not bullshit at all. It is very real. Of course, not the whole principle of Lovecraft wrote the Necronomicon. No, not that. The original Necronomicon. It is very real. The beings that is mentioned in there is very real. The rituals in there is very real. In general, just be cautious with that, okay?
Yeah, in the 1800s, D translated a part of the Necronomicon. So that is more than 200 years ago. More than 100 and so years ago, before Lovecraft came into the scene. So you can do the math.
Have you ever created the Hand of Glory?
That's a very difficult thing to answer, because if we say one thing, we might incriminate ourselves. So we will not deny it or affirm that we have done so. But what we can say, it works wonderfully.
Now,
Bethesheba from Salem asked these questions.
what had to have been the most frightening experience you have ever had with your time in the occult? You first.
Phew. A good couple of years back, when I was a wee lad, I delved into Sumerian magic, namely the Necronomicon. And I did a certain rite, a ritual, quite incorrectly, and there was a big backlash. I visited an acquaintance of mine, and these always docile dogs suddenly attacked me out of nowhere. There's about 5 of the dogs, and the leader of the pack was this female. She became what appeared to be rabid in less than 2 seconds, and luckily I kept her at bay. And then I had to neutralize the situation by punching her on the forehead with this very ring I'm wearing, this pentagram ring. I don't know if you can see it there. Yes, this pentagram ring. And that immediately stopped all activities. That's one of the frightening experiences I had.
By the way, Sumerian spirits tend to like using animals.
Yeah, definitely.
In their reprimands, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
Well, my experience, funny enough, links on to dogs as well, in particular one dog. I was, at the time, an extreme novice in the occult. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I just stepped into that world. And obviously, if you open the door to the occult, things will come through. Things will realize that you have opened yourself up to them, and they will make sure that you notice them. This one particular instance, I was sitting outside having a smoke. It was at night, and I had this one dog. It was a Labrador, usually extremely docile by nature, a little bit, to say the least. He knows the dog very well.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the dog, it's going to be difficult to explain it in such a short amount of time. However, the dog, upon looking upon its features, Its face shifted and changed. It took on a posture that is completely abnormal for a dog, and in any way, shape, or form you look at it. I won't explain it in detail, but it took on such an abnormal appearance that immediately I knew that that wasn't the dog anymore at all. And even upon looking into the dog's eyes, that wasn't a dog anymore. So, me being such a novice, not even knowing how to communicate even with it properly or even send it away, I took a chair between me and the dog, and I just went into the house and salt circle and all that, novice, and the dog went back to normal the next day as if nothing really happened. But believe me, that definitely wasn't a dog anymore at all. Now, luckily, experience. And together,
a couple of years ago as well, my wife and I were performing a curse using one of the 50 names of Marduk and the Necronomicon. It's a specific and a very nasty spirit that we use to curse someone that irritated us a bit.
Enough said.
Yeah. So later that same night, a bunch of adversarial spirits, and we say a bunch of them, it could be a lot of them, were trying to get into our yard at the time, but they could not. We could see them running up and down the road next to the driveway, our driveway, up and down, up and down, up and down. And we had a lot of wards there and a lot of good guardians, and well, we had the skill and the experience to fend them off, so they dispersed. But that was quite scary nonetheless.
Unexpected in its scariness, per se. And for in case you're wondering, for those who do not know the occult so well, no, we didn't see them physically as you would be looking upon us right now. We saw it extra senses, you could call it. Definitely not physically, otherwise the whole neighborhood would probably have seen them.
Yeah, it was quite frightening. So for those of you who thought the Necronomicon is in fact not real, the book is very much real, and the rituals then is very much real.
So take caution.
Yeah. And by the way, that curse of ours that we spoke about, it works pretty damn well. So yeah, we're very impressed with that.
Now, are there any disadvantages to working together in the arts? Well, to be honest, we cannot speak about everyone out there who works in pairs or more in the occult. We cannot speak for all of them, but we can speak for ourselves. Absolutely no disadvantages. If anything, it has more advantages than working alone.
Yeah, definitely. We're always there for one another. We support each other through and through. If you work on a rite, for example, ritual or spell, we work together and combine energy into it, and we are both adept practitioners and very much experienced in the occult arts, so you can imagine the results we have. It's phenomenal.
Also, if one of us fails to notice something like a presence or something like that, the other one always does. So we always have each other's back, you know. Nothing can just weasel its way past us. So yeah, it's just perfect.
Yeah, as Baronessa said, we complement each other perfectly. For example, Baronessa here has the ability to pick up energy much quicker than I can. She's very sensitive to spiritual energy. She has always been sensitive to that. And yeah, so that's a good thing.
Now, what was one of the most or more risky things that you have done in your time in the occult?
After I was initiated into black witchcraft many years ago, there was another coven of black witches who for some reason or the other, disliked me very much. And they performed spiritual warfare on me. They attacked me for no reason spiritually through curses and bindings, etc. and so forth and blah, blah, blah. And that was the first witch coven I took on and defeated. And I was just initiated into black witchcraft. So I'm still here, they're not.
Mine has to be, again, just stepped into the occult. Again, super novice, okay? I came across the Goetia of Solomon, and I took a particular liking to this one being who I felt completely drawn to. And in my ignorance and not knowing anything about evocations or beings or anything of the sorts at all, I decided to evoke this being. Now, in retrospect, I know what I've done was completely stupid, and it could have had disastrous consequences, especially with that one spirit or being I wanted to call upon. But later on, I found out that the being that I called forth and communicated with was in fact not the one that I originally set out to call forth, but one of my patrons instead. So I'm very thankful for that, actually, that one of my patrons decided to come through instead. And yes, that is possible, because that particular patron of mine has a higher level of authority or power, as one would say. So he decided to come through instead. If he didn't do that, yeah, I might not have been sitting here right now. And together, well, to be honest, the things that we do, people might see some of them as risky or whatever, but to us it's
child's play, basically.
It's normal, average, everyday things. So there's not really a lot of things we can add to that. Mostly, as with him and with me as well, most of the experiences was when we were a bit more novice-ish, when we didn't really know, when we didn't really have our footing in this world yet. Now it's a different story altogether.
You see, there's nothing wrong with making mistakes. It's learning from your mistakes that should matter. Baroness and I are not arrogant or egotistical badasses wannabe. We simply state things the way it is. We will not lie to you, nor to anyone, because it's not our nature. The truth is the greatest weapon anyone can ever have. And if we tell you there's nothing wrong with making mistakes, know that there isn't. That's how you learn. The person who claims never to make mistakes basically hasn't learned anything. So making mistakes is part of spiritual growth.
As long as you learn from them at the end of the day.
Oh yes.
And that leads on to our final question. What had to be one of your larger mistakes made while walking your path? Honestly, there are only one, probably the biggest ever. Assuming everything is as it seems.
Don't ever believe anything at face value. If you see something in a book which you read, do not believe it. Like we said before, question everything. For herein lies great wisdom. The mistake we made was believing everything that was written in grimoires, etc. and so forth.
When we started out.
When we started out in the occult, then we started to investigate, thinking for ourselves, logically, speaking to these beings ourselves, finding out truths about them, and if these beings are nothing more than a mental construct or an egregore or servitor, then we note it. Then it's pointless in working with it, because we can create mental constructs, egregores, etc. and so forth ourselves. So do not take anything at face value, especially not the Solomonic grimoires in magic, or anything which claims you must call upon this god and that god when you have to work with this force or this force. Even with the dead, do not believe anything you read. You investigate yourself, question everything, and above all, use your brain. Think for yourself.
This is where practical experience comes in. Everything seems so good and fine in theory, you know, reading up on it, stuff like that. Or this person or that person said this and this. The best teacher out there is experience. Look at us. We speak out of experience. Yes, we've had teachers, human and non-human teachers as well. However, experience.
Yeah, if you're going to consider he said, she said, bullshit or hearsay, the only thing you're going to reach is a dead end very quickly.
If you don't want to believe us, try it for yourself, or even look at yourself if you are practicing and really ask yourself. Apart from that, you know, everyone makes mistakes, not just in real life, or real life, mundane life, whatever you want to call it, but in the occult as well. Every single one makes mistakes. We do too. Some small, some big, some whatever, everything in between. However, as my husband said, you must make mistakes in order to learn. It just depends if you actually learn from it. You shouldn't go making the same mistake over and over and over again, because then you're not doing anything, you're not getting anywhere. And that concludes our viewers' question. Oh yeah, and there's one other thing. A whole bunch of people has questioned us on, they thought we were 70, 60 years old by what they read that we write, and by our amount of experience. They think that we must be old people, but obviously you can see we're not that old. The only thing we have to say to all of them, and to you too, for in case you were thinking of asking us that question, is we started very, very, very young.
Yes, and we didn't get our experience in the occult from just some practicing. No, you get the experience from making mistakes and learning through your mistakes. And then once you have a successful practice in the occult, you build up on that. And yeah, plain and simple.
Plain and simple. And that would conclude this episode of our video series. We thank all of you for watching, and well, yeah, we hope that you keep on watching and you subscribe and you come into contact with us.
No, definitely. And always remember,
as within,
so without,
as above,
so below.